In today's world, we are experiencing the challenges of finding true rest. Our days are overrun with demands and expectations, emails, and busy schedules. This pace leads to burnout that affects our relationships and health. In today's episode, we are exploring a variety of ways Jesus rested, how we can truly live by the Sabbath, leaving you with tactical ways to implement more rest in your busy schedule and finding peace that comes from embracing true rest. Hey, friend, welcome to the Between the Pages podcast, where we explore navigating life's peaks and valleys with bold faith. Join us bi weekly as we dive into meaningful conversations with guests, team members, and community leaders. Together, we'll tackle topics that challenge and encourage, helping you live out your faith between the pages of everyday life. Well, hey, friends, welcome back to season 3 of the Between the Pages podcast. And we're in a new space. We have partnered with a new producer, and this season is about to be amazing.
So excited.
I literally have been. This is the only thing that's got me through today. Truthfully, I'm like, I cannot wait to talk about all things rest, all things Jesus, a fun new environment, and a new season. And something that I really truthfully need to practice and remind myself of, which is rest.
Rest.
Jenny, we were just talking about this before, and you're like, yeah, like, I just went on a walk today and I made breakfast. And I was like, wow, that is amazing. I slept for up until 5 minutes before my alarm had to go off for the 15th time to
That's
get me out
rest
of
too,
bed.
though. That's another form of rest.
Yes, absolutely. And I truthfully going into thinking about this episode and like rest, and I know we had talked about a couple questions that we wanted to go through, and especially as we're starting season 3, a new ministry season, we're heading off into the fall ministry and thinking through, refresh. What is all this going to mean for us and our team and our schedules? And the thing that I come back to is I am tired all the time. And we've been asking ourselves the questions like how do we allow God to refill us? How do we feel refilled in resting through our busy schedules? But then also how do we live between the pages of everyday life,
Mhm.
We go through emails and work and meetings and all these other seeing friends, like fun things too, but it's like as we have seen throughout the Bible that we're going to dive deeper into is like God calls us to rest. Yet us as humans hate to rest
Isn't
sometimes.
that a weird concept? I like to feel busy. I feel like when I'm not busy, I'm not being productive. I'm like, ugh, I'm just so lazy. So I like to feel busy in the sense that like I can keep things going and keep that momentum going. Cause I feel like if I rest, then I don't want to get back up again. So trying to find that balance and think that like, okay, my purpose is not to rest and then like rush through everything else so I can rest again, but try to like practice that skill and get better at resting, which I think is like, I don't know, the world is really not generous with free time. It seems like every little minute is filled in your day.
And I think a lot of that comes down to, success and how does one define success in their career, in their relationships, in their friendships. And I think, like you were saying, is you feel more productive. You feel like you're accomplishing something when you're continually on the go and continually getting stuff done and trying to also possibly maybe chase a dream, even.
Mhm.
And you're trying to define your own success. And
Mhm.
when you take a step back and you rest, you feel like you're not being successful. And I think
Mhm.
that's where like we have these two things kind of hitting each other and like friction.
Mhm.
And I know for me, especially like the last couple months, like I feel like I've been hitting that friction, like dealing with insomnia. Like I feel like I haven't gotten like a solid night's sleep in 4 months. And the Lord has been humbling me of like, you need to rest. And it's not like, yes, resting, sleeping, catching up on sleep if you can, but it's almost truthfully like a physical wake up call of you need to relook and reprioritize your schedule
Yeah.
because right now you're trying to chase success of the world standards,
Mhm.
not chase me and my dreams that I have for you. And I think that's something that I'm excited to take some learning points that I've learned through that whole journey that I'm still walking through. Like I'm still dealing with it. I'm still working on it, trying to find different ways to like remedy sleep and get more into a schedule for my own sleep habits and resting, that Jesus is like, "Hey, I need you to come to me
Mhm.
at the end of the day." Not gonna lie, I feel like I've not been in my Bible as much as I should be. And so this is perfect timing with season 3 of fall ministry, everything coming back, that we can now like really truthfully get back in and be intentional and
Mhm.
live between all the pages of life and just dive deeper into seeking after Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, I think taking Jesus as the full ultimate example whenever he was preaching or doing miracles or talking about parables and the times that he needed to rest too, to get away from the disciples, to get away from the crowds. Like, if Jesus has to rest, if God has to rest making the world, like that, is the ultimate example. And it's just so cool to see what the Bible has to say about rest. I really like this topic. So I was like looking into different verses. I'm like, oh, there's so many good ones. But one that I found particularly inspiring was in Matthew 11:28. It's just a simple one sentence, and Jesus is talking. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And that just reminded me of all the times where I think I can find rest in a different way or a different method, or like, oh, maybe I'll try this, maybe I'll try that. And instead of just going right to God when I am weary and burdened, and or I try to do that on my own. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna push that aside and just like full on go through that worry and that weary and that burdenness and try not to rest and skip that important step. Then you just get even more tired.
And you miss important things going on. And there's a story in the Bible that I feel like embodies this kind of tension of success of the world, and then also resting in the Lord and resting in what he has for us and learning it. It's Mary and Martha and Luke.
Mhm.
And it starts in verse 30 and it goes like this. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her."
Oof.
And I think it's a beautiful picture because you have Martha who's trying to chase after these preparations and she's keeping herself busy and she has all these things that she truthfully just really, really needs to feel like she needs to get done. Where Mary is making the decision to sit at the Lord's feet and rest in his presence and take in what he has to offer her
Mhm.
rather than worrying about the to do list.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's something that's so hard in today's society, is to be like, I'm gonna sit here and allow myself to just soak in what the Lord has for me.
Mhm, and you and I are both very involved in our church, and I think that can happen too when you're just like, "Okay, this needs to be get done. Okay, who turned on the coffee? Okay, wait, the lights need to be on. Oh, wait, I didn't print the
Oh,
music
girl, that
yet."
was me last week. I was like, okay, I gotta get this done, this done, this done.
Yeah, yeah, and we're just, like, scrambling and maybe not scrambling, but if we're planned it out and we're still trying to get things done, and then the Lord's like, "Wait, you're forgetting, like, what I'm trying to speak to you this morning," you know? So whatever you're finding yourself in that busyness, just remember to, like, hear that still small voice of God. He doesn't wanna yell at you, he's not gonna try to raise his voice. He will sometimes, he'll smack you upside the head if he needs to, but it's way easier to hear that still quiet voice that the Lord is trying to speak to you instead.
Yeah, and I think Mary shows us in this particular situation how rest is a blessing from God. Because she probably was doing a lot of preparation work as well. But then we see Mary as well, like eventually she sat down also at the Lord's feet
Mhm.
and soaked in what he had to say. And it goes back to Isaiah 40:31, which says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." And to understand the importance of rest, like we see in one instance, Jesus rested, like you said, like
Mhm.
in the story of the like storm and the disciples are in the boat, and Jesus was literally napping. He was taking a nap.
Yep.
And when you read this story, you don't see this the disciples are over here, like, yelling at Jesus, being like, "Do something, like, we're gonna drown." Like, they're they aren't understanding who 1, who God is in that moment,
Mhm.
but 2, you also don't see Jesus wake up and apologize.
Yeah.
He wakes up and say, "Ye of little faith."
Yep.
Which, okay, 1, humbling, like, I was straight savage move right there, because
Yeah.
I feel like any one of us, if, like, we're, like, resting and someone's like, "Why didn't you do this?" We're like, "Oh, sorry, like, I'll do it right now."
Right,
But
right.
Jesus was like, No, I'm resting. You can hold on.
Mhm.
Like, this is my time because I just fed 5,000 people.
Mhm.
Like, did you
Mhm.
not just see?" And that's the other crazy thing too, is, like, the disciples just witnessed Jesus feeding 5,000 people with, what was it? 2 loaves and 3 fishes?
Right, right, right.
And now you're worried about drowning
Mhm.
in the ocean, lake, wherever they were,
Mhm.
and you're yelling at God, or you're yelling at Jesus, being like, "Do something, like, we're gonna drown." But the fact that you, like, I just get so confused at that point, because 'cause I'm like, "Didn't she just witness this? And, like, why are you now
Yeah.
doubting God and Jesus' power?
Yeah. I
Like,
guess
let the poor man nap."
it probably just shows even more, like, how human Jesus still was. Like, he was, fully God and fully man at the same time. He wasn't like some supernatural being that was, like, fully, the whole time just, totally active and moving and doing things. He still needed that rest and, like, that humanness that you were talking about, that reset and recharge in the middle of the sea too. So,
Yeah.
wherever you might find yourself, don't think that you're in the wrong environment to rest maybe. Sometimes I think like, okay, I need to like get a bath ready, or like I need time to go on a walk, or like I'm not in the right environment, but you can find rest wherever you need for sure.
And especially once we come to Jesus as that blessing of rest, we receive that soul rest. And Psalm 62:1, it talks about how a relationship with God brings rest, similarly to, like, all like, "Come all who are weary and burdened, I
Mhm.
will give you rest." Like, come. Like, it's an invitation for Jesus, like, "Come and seek after me in all your weariness, and all your insomnia, and all of your to-do lists, and all of the things going on, and rest in me." And I think sometimes it's, like, also too, like, rest in me and let me show you
Mhm.
what I'm gonna do while you're resting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's almost like that active surrender of giving God just the space to move rather than us
Mhm.
trying to do everything on our own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when you're going from point 1 to point 2 to point 3, you're like, okay, I got to get this done, this done, this done. You're not being like, okay, I got to get this done. Actually, God, I'm struggling with this. Can we, like,
Mhm.
pause here and talk about this for, like, a hot second? You're like, I'm going to figure it out on my own because I got to get to the next thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Where that implementation of rest allows for a clear mind
Right.
as
Right.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it allows for a clear space for God to provide direction, provide answers.
Mhm.
Man, I'm being convicted because I'm like, I got all these things going on that I got need questions to. I'm like,
Yeah.
God, remember our passcode that we had? Where's that come through? Because I'm like seeking after answers, but I'm not allowing the restful space
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
listen to those answers.
Or if your answers don't fit in that schedule and it's like, "No, I want you to rest longer." You're like, "God, I'm done resting." Like, I wanna see some action happening, but then God might be pumping the brakes a little bit too and say like, "Nope, you're resting a little bit longer on this topic or on this situation," which is it's hard because we want everything to happen in our own time and not seeing what God is showing in God's time. It's just, like, not even like, we can't fathom it.
Jenny, for you, like, thinking on this, like, we talked about, like, Jesus rested, and now, like,
Mhm.
getting into this idea of, like, soul rest in a way. For you, like, what are some things that you have implemented maybe in your own personal walk with Jesus, or know of, like, mentors in their walk with Jesus that have implemented that time and space to allow for your soul to rest, not
Mhm.
necessarily your physical body, but your
Mm.
soul to rest?
Mhm, mhm. I think, for phones, that's like a huge thing because sometimes you try to work and rest at the same time. like you'll be trying to write emails while you're going on a walk or something like that. So I think as a practical way, just making sure that that part of it is put away and you're fully taking time to rest. And when I was looking into it a little bit more, finding that rest can be active, it doesn't have to be so passive. Then you can also kind of feel like you're getting stuff done, but also resting at the same time, and that you can practice it as a skill so you can get better at resting. It doesn't have to be super easy right away, or maybe you're not good at resting yet and you need to take some time and practice and find what works best for you. I feel like way more energized in the morning, whereas like someone else might be way more energized at night. So just trying to figure out what best works for your schedule and trying to like make that happen throughout the day, I think can really help a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think too, going off of that with soul rest is also taking that time, yes, for that physical activity, whether that's going on a walk or,
Mhm.
maybe it's folding the laundry and listening to
Right.
worship music. Like
Mhm.
you're still getting something done. It doesn't necessarily take brain power to do.
Right, right.
It's better than typing up an email or getting overwhelmed because now you're like, I'm very guilty of this. Is like I go on a walk, but I bring my phone and I'm like, oh, this is a
Mm.
perfect time. I'm not doing anything to like go through some emails,
Right.
like get a couple posts ready to go for boldly seeking or
Mhm.
photography or whatever else. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
this is perfect time to like sit and get some other things done and rest in that. But
Mhm.
also, is that rest? No,
Right.
because I'm still doing like something that's preoccupying my mind
Mhm.
off of Jesus and
Mhm.
not occupying my mind on Jesus.
Mm, mhm.
And for something I'm challenging myself with is to like take that walk time that I have during the day, whether that's on my lunch or after work or even
Mhm.
on the golf course, and either like pray or listen to worship music, like download some music on my watch so I can leave my phone at home,
That's smart,
but it's on
yeah.
my watch so I
Mhm.
can at least have something.
Mhm.
And then, or just like walking in silence, which just
Mm.
sounds so awkward.
Right,
It's
right.
so awkward, and thankfully, I live in the country, so it's like I'm not having to, like, walk on the side of a street and then
Mhm.
you hear people talking or whatever. Like but just to, like, listen to the leaves or, like, listen to wildlife, things like that, where it's like you can hear maybe Jesus in a whisper.
Mhm, mhm. I think that's really cool to think of, like, the senses too. So, like, your soul could be one of your senses, and if you're checking in, "Okay, what am I seeing? What am I feeling? What am I smelling? What am I tasting? How's my soul feeling right now?" That could be, like, another thing that you could check in and be like, "Okay." I like how you're talking about, like, step 1, step 2, step 3, but then, like, taking step 1 and making sure, like, "God, are we good to move on to step 2? Like, are we good? Step 1 was good? Alright, let's move on to step 2." And you're, like, taking that pause and that rest a little bit and, like, really breaking down and being intentional and, like, purposeful about each of those things. That's I like that. That's a cool way to challenge our listeners too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, look back to last fall when we,
Mhm.
like, took this 5-month hiatus and we talked about that in
Right.
season 2, and
Yep.
it's like our bodies physically, we couldn't handle it anymore, where
Mhm.
God was like, "We're resting,
Mhm.
and this is gonna be hard because you're gonna feel like something is off, and you're gonna feel something is ending, but it's not. I'm using this rest time to work within you and work around you."
Mhm.
And, like, look at now. We're back,
Yeah.
and we're learning to rest, we're practicing rest, we're reminding ourselves to rest even with this episode.
Mhm.
And yes, I'm still going through all of my sleep habits are not great and insomnia, all the things, but like that reminder for myself of, okay, I need to go take a 15-minute walk and just leave everything and just
Mhm.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a
I
one-way ticket.
I think the, like going back to the Mary and Martha story, I've definitely felt both of those attitudes before, where either it's just like I need to fully be in the presence of God right now, even though other things are happening. And then I've also felt like, okay, if I'm not gonna get it done, who's gonna get it done? And I know this needs to happen. And so it's okay to be both people sometimes, but just to make sure that you're really focusing on like that practicality and being intentional about resting too.
Mhm. And other like obviously Jesus rested, the soul rest, and we see like an actual blessing of rest through Sabbath.
Mhm.
And you look back to the creation story, and even God rested from creating the world on the seventh day. And that's truly a picture shown to us, like we had mentioned before, that we are designed to take a pause and rest. You
Mhm.
cannot work yourself into the ground. If you continue to work yourself into the ground, nothing is going to get accomplished.
Mhm.
You're going to make to-do lists for your to-do list.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that. When I'm tired, I feel like that's almost what I do
Oh, yeah.
because my mind is spinning 1,000 different ways. And so I'm trying to remember everything. And there's
Mhm.
been times where I've texted friends and I'm like, I'm going to text you this big long text message and it's probably not going to make sense. But I'm at the point where I'm so tired. If I don't put it on paper now,
Mhm.
I'll forget about it.
Mhm.
And so now it's like, okay, but if I go back and read that message, I'm like, great, I have 7 to do tasks from that one
True.
thing.
True.
Where it's like, if I was to just take an intentional pause in my week, whether that's Sunday, whether that's Wednesday. It's hard for those who are possibly involved in church on a Sunday where it might
Mhm.
not feel like rest. Maybe it's Monday, maybe it's Tuesday. Like it doesn't have to be Sunday. Yes, that's how it was in the Bible. Sabbath was always Sunday,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean that it has to be Sunday has to be your Sabbath.
Mhm.
Truthfully, my Sabbath is like on Monday.
Mhm.
Like, it's after church is over, like, we've
Right.
done the set, everything's good, like, Monday, I can just breathe. Like, work is usually calm where I can kind of recollect myself,
Mhm.
and, even if work is busy on a Monday, it's like, "Okay, my Sabbath day is going to be Friday, it's gonna be Saturday," like, or
Mhm.
maybe Sunday is chill, or I do have a week off from serving at church. Okay, great, Sunday is my Sabbath day, but making that a point in your schedule
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're gonna thank yourself later, and it allows, again, that clear space
Mhm.
for Jesus to get something across to you where he's like, "You've been distracted the last 6 days. What are you doing?
Yep.
Now it's my turn."
Yeah. Yeah. I think writing stuff down is a huge part when you have so much going on in your brain and you just kind of need to spill it out on paper or spill it to a friend or like obviously spill it to God too and just say like, okay, these are the things that I'd like to get done, but maybe making like a list of the top 2 priorities and that could be your goal for the week too. And then the other things, although they are important, don't need to happen immediately too. Yeah,
Mhm.
I love to-do list. I think it's a great way to stay organized, but then don't make that your identity either. Like, I know people who, like,
Snaps to that,
their
snaps
their
to that.
planner is, like, their second hands, like, sidekick.
There was a point in my life where I considered my planner was my Bible or my Google
Mhm,
Calendar was my Bible
mhm.
because I put everything in there. When I was
How
in
did
college, I put
Yeah.
everything in there.
How did you work your way out of that? Like
I honestly I think it was truly COVID.
Okay,
I
yeah.
think COVID just really, like, I didn't have anything going on, and
Mhm.
so I didn't necessarily need a calendar.
True.
Now I'm kind of having a healthier relationship with my Google Calendar because I'm
Mhm.
not putting every single little thing in,
Mm.
but I'm like, "Okay, what are the most important things?" Like you had said, like,
Mhm.
I have a meeting with this person or I have, this league night this night or I'm getting together with this friend. But I
Mhm.
also think, resting too, like, do something, like, for you that's fun, especially if you're a busy person or you have a lot of things going on. Whether if you're a college student and it's really crazy or you're a young professional or you're an entrepreneur or things like that, like,
Mhm.
everyone has something that they're driving towards. Graduation, owning
Yep.
their own business, like being a C-level suite executive, things like that. Everyone is going towards something, and, it's taking it back to, again, what are those kinda top priorities? But then doing something fun for me, whether that's getting dinner with a friend, because that can also be a soul rest too.
Oh, yeah,
Like, you're
yeah.
sitting without phones and just investing into another person and them
Mhm.
investing back into you. Like, that's why I always love meeting with my mentors
Mhm.
and getting to ask them questions of things that I'm struggling with
Mhm.
or getting together with really close friends and be like, "Hey, like, I just wanna see you. It's been a while.
Mhm.
Like, how are you?"
Mhm.
And then it gets to then that conversation and that point of, "Okay, how are you really doing right
Yeah,
now?"
yeah. Because then how do you feel after those encounters with those people? Do you feel re-energized or do you feel, like,
I've
drained?
always feel more motivated
Okay.
because and I think that and that's an gets into a deeper, like, conversation for another episode
Yeah.
of, like, surrounding yourself with people who are gonna fill up your cup, not
Mhm.
continue to drain your cup.
Mhm.
Because if you surround yourself with people that are gonna be full of drama, they're toxic, it's gonna continue to you're going to feel like it's another to-do list
Right.
because they're going to expect you to be there for them in every single situation.
Mhm.
Where, like, if you surround yourself with people in a community, whether that's in your church community or your friends or in school, with people who want to invest into you as a human being, how are you truly doing it? And you reciprocate that back to them, and that's a healthy relationship.
Mhm.
It's ultimately going to fill you up because you feel one seen, you felt heard,
Yeah.
and you have someone that will be able to help keep you accountable for whatever you're talking about.
Mhm.
And maybe that is rest too. Like, I truly, like, my parents are my accountability with rest. Like, they know when I'm way too busy and they're like, "Rebecca, you need to stop." And I know that's also God's way of being like, "Rebecca, I'm talking to you through your parents right
Right.
now.
Yeah.
You need to stop."
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if, like, this would go outside of your comfort zone too, but, like, to share your to-do list with somebody and, like, ask them to do one of those things with you, if that would help the busyness to, like,
Does anyone
subdue a
to do
little
my
bit.
to-do list with me?
Sure, yeah, your to-do list is kind of intimidating. It's like, talk to CEO A and talk to CEO B and, get this done and wash the car and play golf for 9 hours and
Oh, yeah, that's my fun thing that I do for
Okay,
myself.
there we go, that's good, that's your rest period
Yes,
on
that is
the
my
golf
rest
course,
time.
that's good. Yeah, but I think sharing responsibilities with another person really can take that burden off of you a little bit in, like, the sense where I know, like, Jesus is always there with you, but he's not gonna help you do the dishes right now, you know? So helping out and making sure that your responsibilities and your to-do list are maybe spread out a little bit more and asking people to help you with them might be out of your comfort zone, but that could help a little bit.
And it's truly a balance
Mhm.
because I fully believe that in our society nowadays, like, we are out of balance on balancing rest and balancing our to-do list and
Yeah.
balancing dreams, goals, our definition of success.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you have to sit with, what does success mean to
Mhm.
me?
Mhm.
Not to the world standards.
Yeah.
Like, success for me today was getting all of this stuff done for our podcasting session today. And I was like, I crushed that by 3 p.m. today, like, during work.
There
And
you
it's
go.
like, I'm not saying that my success is I'm a CEO of my own company in one
Mhm.
day.
Mhm.
Maybe one day down the road, 10 years from now. That's not a today thing.
Right. Right.
And of course, do I have goals and dreams for boldly seeking? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, are they successful? Am I successful? Well, I got this one thing done
Right.
that was successful
Mhm.
that leads to the ultimate goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not draining myself
Mhm.
to reach that goal in 24 hours.
Right, right. Even if you had another hour of the day, I think you could either fill it with more stuff or, if
Oh,
you'd
I'm
actually
sure.
take that hour to fully rest. Because the most like common thing that people want is more time, more time to do things, more time to spend with family. But yet we're like, our nose is in our business and our planners and things like that. So it's like, do we really want more time or do we want just more like, I don't know, busyness?
Right?
Yeesh.
And I think that's a question that ultimately, like, each one of you listening has to ask that for yourself. But ultimately, too, we were created and designed in God's image,
Mhm.
and God rested. And He's
Mhm.
called us to rest and to rest in Him. And to remember, like, just like Mary and Martha, like, we can be Martha, but there's so much benefit in being Mary.
Mhm.
And to sit at Jesus' feet and be like, I'm going to soak in what you have for me, even if there's 1,000 other to do list
Mhm.
things,
Mhm.
because I'm not going to be able to get those done to my full capacity unless I'm filled up.
Mhm.
And I would say, action item for everyone after this episode, going into this next week, wrestling, like, what is rest? How do I rest? Because also too, when you're able to rest, you're able to be more intentional, living life between the pages.
Mhm.
You're not just jumping from A to B.
Right.
You're going from A to A.1,
Right.
A.2, A.3,
Mhm.
B.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so my challenge to you listeners is to take 15 minutes a day whether that's reading your Bible, going for a quiet 15-minute walk, just nothing. It's going to be
I
awkward.
like that though. I'm
I
gonna try
promise it's
it.
going to be awkward. But no music, no phone, no nothing. You're just walking. And I mean, if you feel inclined to pray, like if there's something that just jumps to you, like a person or a thing or something going on that you want to pray for it. Like
Mhm.
God is prompting you to pray for that because you're finally quiet and still enough.
Mhm.
Like be still and know you're being quiet and still enough for God to put those things on your heart to pray for.
Right, right.
And that's something that I'm even gonna do is taking that 15 minutes in still quiet walk mode to just see, feel, hear
Mhm.
any prompting that the Lord has for me to pray for, or even if He's just being quiet and just listening.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's why people love going on retreats so much and like going up to the cabin for a weekend and just having like girls' nights with your friends or something because like you feel so rejuvenated and refreshed afterwards. So sign up for those retreats, go
Yeah,
on those conferences that you need to, just soak it all up. And then if you need time to reflect on it afterwards, take that time,
yeah,
take that
absolutely.
rest.
And like find that balance too. Like I try to make it my goal to do one thing for myself by myself
Mm-hmm.
and one thing for myself with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's also important is maintaining that community around you. And it's also important to be by yourself and be comfortable being by yourself too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like both of them are good in moderation too, because you don't want to be alone,
Yeah,
like and
isolated.
alienate
Yeah,
yourself from
right,
other
right.
people. But you also don't want to fill all your time with other people.
Yep. It's a balance. Yep. This
Do you
is a
have
good topic.
This is really good. I needed this.
Yeah.
I'm ready to rest this week. Do you have
To
any other challenges, Jenny?
I just think when you find yourself at that crossroad of like, okay, could I do this or could I, read a couple more verses? Like just really figure out which crossroad do you want to take and be that Mary, in place of Martha sometimes.
Yeah, and if you are a Martha, that's okay.
Oh yeah.
And if you're in a season of being Martha, that's okay.
Mhm.
And do what Jenny said. Like maybe just pick 2 or 3 priorities and write that on a list. Like
Mhm.
make a new list the next day. And you can have one master list, but then you're only picking 2 or 3 to accomplish that
Mhm.
day. You're
Mhm.
not trying to become CEO in a day.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like you're just trying to be successful within that day with what your top 2 or 3 priorities are.
Yeah. That's a lot.
It's
It's
a
good.
lot.
It's good though.
It's a lot to unpack, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I always fall back to that Isaiah 40:31 verse, and we'll close with that. If I can find it. Should have marked this. Here we go. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. So, friends, go and rest this week. We love you, and we'll see you back soon. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe and rate our show to stay up to date on our latest episode releases. We'd love to hear from you, so head on over to our website or the gram, say hi, be encouraged, and join the movement as we continue to boldly seek after Jesus together. We'll see you next time on the Between the Pages podcast.